Yeah, I think you're one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rob is low.
Well, he's looking a little low today.
Ha ha.
Well, it's better than me. I got a fever.
Oh,
dear.
no.
Well, that's funny. That was just our topic of conversation not 5 minutes ago.
No, Brian's talking about he needs more cowbell.
Oh.
Oh, I see.
Don't you know? The crazy there, the fever's better.
This is the AT Banter Podcast, a balanced and entertaining look at assistive technology, accessibility, and its importance in people's lives. Join Rob Minot, Ryan Fleury, and Steve Barclay as they banter with people around the world about anything and everything regarding assistive technology and the disability community. Now, on with the show.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of AT Banter.
Banter. Ooh, that was
Whoa, that was a nice hit.
that was well struck.
That was. My name, of course, is Rob Minot. And joining me today, Mr. Ryan Fleury,
Hello.
Mr. Steve Barclay,
Good day, sirs.
and
Others.
some COVID-19 germs in the air in the house. Hopefully not. I'm seriously, like, I'm actually, this week, I'm going to actually start prepping.
Yeah.
I'm going to become a doomsday prepper.
Are you?
Yeah, which
Nice.
is all so far. I've figured bottled water and a flat of something.
Well, I figure that so far this virus has about a 4% fatality rate. I believe that's about what it is.
Right.
So that is 1 in 20. I've got 4 family members, which is way less than 20. So the odds of any of us dying from it is really slim. So I'm just going to go out to the airport and start licking surfaces.
Yeah, but see, it would be one thing if you could get it and then you don't get it again. But like you said earlier, the people are getting it again, so it doesn't even help to get it first.
Yeah, I'm not sure how. I'm not sure
It's not really unfair.
what the whole story is there. There was a news story out that I read earlier that said China is now re-quarantining people who have already had the virus because they are now testing positive for the virus again. So does that mean that they're still carrying around the virus and they're still transmissible despite having gone through the virus? Does it just mean that it's their immune system has dealt with it, but it's still hanging around somehow, or is it just hanging around waiting to kill them later? I don't know. It's very strange. That is not typical behavior for a virus that you've overcome.
This is just a really bad time to be neurotic.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah,
I suppose it would be. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And all this because, somebody decided, hey, that bat looks like it would go well in a soup.
Oh, is that what happened?
Well, they don't know exactly what happened. They know that it originated, the epicenter of it was like a market where they sold exotic animals. So whether one of those exotic animals was eaten and it transmitted, or whether it transmitted another way, I don't know. But they do know it came from an exotic animal sales place in Wuhan province.
Right.
Well, I don't know. But it always pays to, I guess, be prepared. But my problem is that, I buy a flat of something and then, like, I don't know, I'll be like, okay, I'm hungry, I need some lunch.
Yeah,
so you
don't leave home until that flat's done.
I got the whole flat of tomato soup, really? I mean, I could probably just have one, right? I could probably have one, and then next thing I know, they're all gone. Damn it. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens. Anything exciting happening in the world of AT that you guys know about?
CSUN's coming up soon.
Yeah, looking forward to going to the CSUN conference and hopefully seeing some new stuff. Connecting with some of my old peeps.
Yeah. Was this the first time you've been back for a while? Did you go last? No, you went
was there
last
last
year.
year, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, do you find that like you like see people that like what like once a year, every year at the thing?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely run into people I know there. You don't always get treated to a whole lot of new stuff. Last year I thought was kind of light as far as really new, exciting stuff went. But this year's going to be totally different. It's going to be just chock-a-block full of new things.
Think so?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought maybe you had some inside information.
No, everybody's much more tight-lipped in this industry these days. They don't pre-announce products. They don't send out products to dealers to say, hey, we want feedback on this. Back like they did in the day. I
wonder why. Like, what do you think? What's the deal with that?
I don't know. Everybody's just so concerned with secrecy and competition.
We do have some news.
Do we?
If Steve wants to share.
What's that news?
We have a new product in-house, do we not?
We do.
The Canute 360.
Oh, yeah. Well, we got our first Canute 360s in, yeah.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah. And
wait, have you played with it?
I have, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I was going to bring one over for Ryan, but I realized I got to ship it off to Edmonton today for the show I'm doing in Edmonton. I've got to ship it off to Edmonton today for the show I'm doing in Edmonton, but yeah, it's neat. It's it's the world's first commercial 9-cell, 40 character wide.
9-line. Not 9-cell.
Did I say 9-cell?
Yeah.
Sorry, 9-line. Yeah, 9-cell. It's 9-cell. No, that would suck. Yeah, 9-line, 40 character long display for a total of 360.
Right. Braille reader.
Yeah. Think of it as a Braille Kindle.
Yep.
Load your book onto an SD card or a USB stick, stick it in the thing, and away you go.
Yeah. It'd be really effective for like textbooks. I mean, I think the education market's going to be sort of a big...
I would think. I mean, just in terms of, not having to ship around a bunch of large Braille volumes, I would think it would be pretty good.
Yeah.
Also, just to reinforce Braille reading skills, to get people reading on a more consistent basis. I think it's good for that too. But interestingly, we've sold 3 of them so far, and there's a 4th lined up for it. But of those 4, 1 is a student, and 3 are adults who just want them for reading.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. So, the other thing we've got in too, of course, is the Braille Me.
Yep.
We brought that in as well, so we now have the cheapest Braille display in Canada.
Yep.
At $750 for a 20-cell, Bluetooth capable, USB capable Braille display, which is super nice. It's been very well received so far by everybody who's seen it.
Yeah, the Braille in it's quite crisp. It's quite nice.
Yeah.
Even I can read it.
Yeah, Braille's good. I mean, it's a little louder than your average Braille display, but I mean, come on, $750 versus,
Yeah.
how much would you pay for, the next...
Well, even a 14-cell Braille display is like $1,500.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, half the price of a 14 cell.
Yeah.
And it's wider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
1-844-795-8324 or visit us online at www.knstech.com.
Insert shameless plug.
Hey, we just did a live read. We were trying to do live commercials. We might as well just do it. Let's lean into it.
That's right.
Hey, we were going to do segments. Did we?
We haven't figured any of that out.
We
can talk about that after.
All right.
But hey, Ryan.
Rob.
What are we doing today?
Today we are talking with Jeff Godfrey from Y4U Technologies about an app related to indoor navigation they're working on, and Brian Bibeault, who is beta testing for him.
Cool.
And one thing that Brian will want?
Yep.
Yeah, we know.
More cowbell.
Yep.
All right, well, let's give it to him.
Joining us now are Jeff Godfrey and Brian Bibeault. Jeff and Brian, I want to introduce you all to Mr. Steve Barclay.
Good day.
And
Hi.
Mr. Rob Minot.
Hello.
Rob just sounds so down.
I do?
You
Really?
do. Hello.
Oh, sorry. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, perk it up there, Rob.
Boy, oh boy.
Yes. Hello. Is that better?
Sure.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
And so, yeah, guys, we have Brian Bibeault joining us, who's a GTT member and also a tester for Mr. Jeff, who is joining us from Y4U Technologies.
Thank you.
Oh, cool.
Hi, everyone.
Why don't we start? Maybe you guys can just give us a little bit of background on who you are and what you guys have been working on.
Sure. So I've been in software development for about 20 years. But this actually only came to me maybe a year and a half ago. So I was working with a company that does digital models for architects. So the company is called Digital Blueprint. And as things came up in the news regarding like Bill C-81 and all the challenges going forward and the changes the government are trying to implement, indoor navigation really caught my attention from that architectural perspective. So we have all these 3D building information models, and I was curious if it was being used at all for accessibility, since indoor navigation appears to be, one of the bigger problems that hasn't really been, solved at this point. And as I searched more and more, I found that beacons tended to be the dominant solution. And I didn't really see any other companies using building information models. So I started experimenting with, building an app that would be able to read those digital blueprints and bring them in and then give navigation instructions based on that. So that's kind of what we're working on. The biggest part of that is really the user interface and making it simple for users and make it work with other assistive technologies. So things like voice control and voiceover took a little bit to get those things integrated properly, so it was working well. And that's probably something Brian can speak about a little more than I can. But that was kind of where we were headed. And as we did that, we noticed that there were other issues that we could tackle, things like customizing the app for the users specifically, so for individual users. Everyone has a bit of different needs and understands things differently. So we started adding a lot of customization options. Like if you asked me to, let's say, walk 10 meters consistently, I would have a difficult time doing it. So I didn't expect any of the users to really be able to do that. So what we introduced were the ability to change distance measurements. So things like, yes, we can do steps and meters. They are options. However, we also added the option to do steps. So that makes it a little easier for the user to be able to count their steps. And also we have a setting where they can adjust the amount of steps they take per meter, because that's one of the conversion units we use. And depending on your familiarity with a building or many other factors, your gait may change. So it's kind of allowing the user to customize the app for their own personal use. Similarly with directions, we know that not everything comes natural to us, so we added the options for plain language. So if the user is good with left and right, then that is an option. And also, clock face or a compass if that's easier for them. We also added degrees, but I don't really think many people will use that. That was more for precision, and so it's an option, but not really something that will be commonly used, I don't think. We're just trying to figure out the options that'll be easiest for users at this point.
So what is the process, Jeff? Like if you've got a 3D blueprint of, the internal building layout, is there a library that the app accesses, or like, do you download maps onto your device?
So basically we would get what's called a point cloud from the company that collects the data. And from that, we kind of map it out ourselves. So part of that's manual and part of it's automated. We find it's important to have a user kind of put themselves in the perspective of the potential app users and go through the building, and we pick out specific features, obviously, and try and guide them through in that way. But it's converting that into something that's usable in an app, something you can carry with you, because those files are quite large when you get into some of those 3D models. So it's a matter of scaling that down with both automated and compression algorithms, and then also having users verify that data and add the other information that's kind of missing.
Can you give us a sense of what the user experience is like? So somebody walks into a building, what kind of information are they going to get?
Right. So when you walk into a building, we've actually put signage at the entrances at this point. That's our initial starting point, which helps the user kind of calibrate their position to the map. And then it would describe the area for you. There are a couple of other options for the users. So say you wanted, let's say, a direct path from a main entrance or an entrance, because all the entrances are tagged, to another area. Well, there's the option for it to give you just turn-by-turn directions. So it would be, let's say walk 10 steps forward, walk 20 steps to the right, walk 30 steps to the left, and you will arrive at your destination on the left. Something like that. But there's also the option, if they want, let's call it more of a touring mode or mind mapping, it will tell them everything they pass. So, 2 steps ahead, there will be other interior doors which swing outward. Go another 5 steps forward, and you will reach, say, the co-working offices on the right, and so on and so forth until you reach your destination. So there's a lot more steps to it like that if you're trying to, let's say, map or tour a building or even just learn the space.
Yeah, if I may add to that, of course, in North Bay right now, we only have the one building that's mapped out. But in that building, the first time I went in, like I had it set to announce every room as I get to them. So it gave me an idea of the building and what was in there, and many places I didn't even know existed that were in there. But then after that, once I kind of knew I didn't need that information, I can just go at either entrances from the parking lot and then just select that as my starting point. And using voice control, which is now available on it with an earbud in, I'm able to navigate throughout the whole building and get to my destination with no problem. The furthest I've been away from a destination point so far in beta testing it was 2 feet away from a door, because fantastic. I didn't calibrate myself quite exactly. But if I can't find a door 2 feet away from it, I'm in trouble. And of course, one time it said, you have arrived at your destination on the left, and I turned right. But that's user error, not the app itself. And like, it's been extremely accurate to get around. And well, there's other things that Jeff has we discussed, and I don't know if he wants to hit on those today, is basically to be able to, if you get lost in a building, being able to figure out where you're at.
And that is something that we are doing, actually, because now we've finally kind of opened our office in this space. We actually just got our office space at the beginning of the month in the same building that we ended up mapping. So we're right now installing physical signage. So that's one thing we see as important. So say a user gets lost, we want them to be able to find their position and to navigate to where they need to go. When we talk about indoor navigation, it's not one problem, it's 3 different problems, really, the way I see it anyway. And that's wayfinding, navigation, and positioning. So most of the solutions don't do all 3, but they have, components of different ones.
Yeah. And even with the descriptions of the rooms that you arrive at, that's another thing that I find helpful on the app. And of course, if you got movable objects, they're not going to be mapped out in there because they can move all the time. But if you got a service desk that's there, it will tell you where the service desk is. When I went to the washroom, it told me, the stalls are on the left, urinals on the right, sink, whatever. The only thing it didn't tell me is the paper towel holder.
We'll make sure we add that for you, Brian.
So this base 3D information that you guys start out with, How common is it to have that information for a building? And I mean, presumably for older buildings, you wouldn't have this information. How long has that 3D mapping information been available?
Right. So the technology has actually been around for years. I'd say at least a decade, if not longer. It's called LiDAR, which is what we're using to do it, which is light detection and ranging. So if you think of it, it'd be like sonar or radar, but with light beams. That's essentially it. And what it does is it's very highly accurate. Like some of the architectural models are down to like 3 millimeters. Now, obviously, we don't need that kind of intensity, but it's all possible with that, which makes it a multi-purpose technology as well. So you're asking about, is this something that's commonly used? Absolutely. I mean, architects are using it nowadays to get their building information models because it doesn't just do the space, it does other layers of things as well. So when you're doing, let's say electrical runs or things like that. So the data is really useful, not just for accessibility, but for main architectural purposes, which is how it's currently being used. A lot of new builds will have this information, which we can obviously just incorporate into our system instead of, gathering the data again. However, things like retrofits, yes, are a lot more challenging, as in they wouldn't have the drawings typically, or at least not ones in usable form. So the data would need to be collected, but it's typically not that costly at the level that we need it for accessibility.
What's not that costly for, say, like a 2-3 story building?
Okay, so generally we do things on square footage, let's say. So to give you an idea, I'm in about a 25,000 square foot building, which is an old elementary school. That kind of gives you an idea, I think, of the size.
Okay.
To collect that data is usually about, let's say, $2,000 to $4,000, depending on the complexity of the building.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad at all.
Yeah, and I was with him when he did the mapping with the LiDAR camera at the CNIB hub in Sudbury. And I figured we were going to be there like for 3 or 4 hours, and all of a sudden he comes back about after 45 minutes. We're done.
So some of the technology has come a long way, and it can be quite quick to actually collect the data on site. That's true.
So you basically just walk through with a camera and it maps it all out for you?
It's not a camera. So the one that Brian experienced was actually a tripod unit. So it sits there and it has to scan for a couple minutes depending on the intensity, and then you have to move it to new positions. And when you get back to the office, you process it and it meshes it all together. And that's what gives you the complete model. We do have one, however, that you actually walk through the building slowly, and it's a LiDAR scanner kind of on a wand, and it will map out the whole building as you go, or essentially build a 3D model.
Wow, that's really cool.
It is.
I think it's the way to go. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think beacon technology is going to be used, but I see beacon technology as being able to tell me what's in a store or whatever. I can't see it directing me all over the place.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of pick your brain about that a little bit, guys, because this sounds like, an amazing way sort of to build that initial foundation. But do you see, because indoor navigation is you're right, is a complicated problem, especially with, build spaces that aren't necessarily built architecturally to be accessible. So indoor navigation is a really important component of really making our public spaces accessible. So that being said, do you see sort of the complete solution being a collection of different technologies all sort of working together?
I think definitely it's a collaboration. Like every technology kind of has its own purpose, I would say. It's a matter of putting those puzzle pieces together. I think one of the things that holds back beacons is probably the price point. Like it's significantly cheaper generally to do something like this, right, and also to maintain it. Most building owners don't necessarily want to be responsible for going around and maintaining, batteries and different hardware. which we don't need it for this type of solution. But the beacons also have a lot of different benefits, like especially the positioning, which is a strong case for them. So I think it's a matter of finding where each piece fits. So I would say yes, it's not necessarily this is the solution that we're going to go with. It's that it's a piece that was missing.
I've just signed up Canadian Assistive to be a dealer for the Navilens product. Is that something you're familiar with?
Yes, vaguely.
Yeah, as you were talking about this, and you were talking about positioning within buildings, it struck me that that's a really solid technology. The thing I like about Navilens is because they're using essentially what looks a lot like a QR code.
Yes.
And utilizing the camera, it can give you distance information from that QR code as well as directional information to it. But it doesn't have the problems that beacons have. There's no batteries.
Right.
There's no chance of overlap of beacons, which I've run into in the past with other beacon technologies. It could be a really good internal locator for something like this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I was talking actually to Jeff about this last week, I guess.
Yeah.
And Navilens, I'm just actually going to be playing with Navilens just to see if it can be integrated right in, and then like if you need to know your location, instead of having to try and find the plaque beside the office and to find the room number or whatever you're looking for, having Navilens, it seems like to me, I haven't tried it yet exactly, so I can't speak to it, but it would seem that you'd be able to just point your phone towards it and get that information.
Yeah, and I've just received my login information for a 10 location demo set. If you guys want to play with it, just let me know.
Absolutely. I mean, we're always looking at integrating other technologies that they've been working on this for a while, and it looks like a fantastic technology. So absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, it's getting better and better now, like with GPS outside. A lot of the GPS apps have now a tab labeled indoor navigation. Mm-hmm. So if you can get yourself in there, then, you have everything all in one place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really kind of the dream, right? There's so many different systems out there now. There's way around right here. There's probably 5-6 different specific beacon technologies that are in use these days, plus, Navilens, and, I'm sure there's other ones that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. Somehow this all has to be pulled together. You can't have every building be a different technology. It's like get to the front door and start hunting around for signs saying what internal technology is being used for navigation.
And and not only that, I mean, as a user experience, you can't expect somebody to be using one app to get to the mall, a different app to get into the mall, a different app to walk into Walmart, a different app to it has to sort of be seamless in order to really be effective.
Yeah.
And I mean, even using a mall example, there in terms of indoor navigation, there's a lot of different uses that you need. I mean, yes, you need to be able to identify, like, okay, I want to go to Old Navy, so I need to know the way to Old Navy. But then, you may need information about the bathrooms or information about the food court, or or where the bus loop is. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that you may require that is going to require a different data set.
Absolutely. And I think it's a matter of, working with APIs or either, open models where you can kind of share that information between organizations and different apps.
Yeah. I mean, heck, you could even, sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead, sir.
Well, no, I was just going to say, and hey, I mean, you can even go down to real minutia and be like, and then, you need information on what's on what shelf. If you go into, like, where's the men's section in Old Navy?
Right.
Like, where are the t-shirts? Like, what's on this shelf? You can go real specific.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's one of the nice things. If you have, let's say, set positions of things, or at least similar areas, and you have a digital solution where you can modify the information either remotely or online, then it's easy enough to keep a system like this updated, especially if you integrate it into another system like your inventory management, where it could tell everything where it is or tell people where everything is. It's not like we don't do this for other purposes.
And I feel like the other really upside to this is that this also sort of has implications even like in the mainstream.
Oh, absolutely.
You think of like mall directories and stuff like that. You just people need guidance no matter what.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
you have a sighted person going to a different town, and they're going to the mall, and I wonder if this store is in this mall, and you can just pull it up. Bingo, it's there, and it gives you directions to it.
Yep.
So.
I mean, and even things like language barriers. If you're doing, digital infrastructure, it's not a big deal to change signs to multiple languages digitally. Now, to put a sign with 50 different languages on it, that's a little more challenging. The other thing, like a lot of people like, is that you can simulate where you're going. So you don't actually need an internet connection once you download the map for the building. You could be at home and simulate the route that you're going to take tomorrow so that you're aware of it before you even get to the building.
Yeah, I can go in, well, like I said, there's only the one building right now, but I can sit right here in my house and, do a pre-trial of where I'm going the next day or in an hour from now and know exactly. And by the time I get there, I already know where I'm going without ever being there.
So let me just throw this out to the room. How do we feel about beacons? Because it seems to me that the beacon technology has been around a long time, and it's never really caught on. I know there was a lot of excitement around beacons, even just marketing wise. Stores were excited that, they could have these beacons in place and they could push notifications to people's phone to let them know about sales. There was all kinds of, beacons, and that's all we sort of heard for years. But nothing really seemed to happen either in the mainstream or AT related. And I'm just wondering, do you think that that's because of the cost factor or of the maintenance factor, or just the different spaces just didn't seem to really latch on to the idea of beacons?
Yeah, I think there's probably a number of different factors around there. The mainstream uptake of beacons has not been what I think beacon manufacturers certainly hoped for. I've seen simulations, demonstrations where, you walk into a store and there's beacons involved in everything, and cameras involved in everything. So if you walk up to a specific shelf, you pick something up, all of a sudden, boom, you're delivered a message saying, hey, this sweater is made with 100% merino wool and, it's on special today. The between the beacon and the camera technology, you can have an experience in a store where there's displays on the walls that are tailoring information specifically to you and what you've looked at inside that store.
Right.
But to maintain something like that would be a massive undertaking. Because as soon as you go and you move your product from that shelf to another shelf, you've got to update that system and have that experience for the user be meaningful.
Right.
Which really either limits what you can do with, moving your stuff around the store, or, puts in a task that somebody has to be on top of all the time.
Right.
I don't think your average retailer wants to take on that.
Yeah.
One, the expense, and two, the maintenance of it.
Right.
So I think that in part is what's really held the beacon technology back to a certain extent. If there was some way to integrate AI into it so that process was more automated, you might have more uptake of it, but I just don't see it being there yet.
Well, I haven't used beacons very much, but I can see like beacon have their place. Well, let's say I'm downtown Toronto walking down the street and, there's a men's clothing store there. or whatever. That and what they have might be of interest to me, but I just can't see myself walking into a mall and having every store scream out sales at me.
Right. Yeah, and I think that was a lot of the pushback that they felt from consumers, was just the people that it's just going to annoy the crap out of people. If you're getting notifications from your phone every time you walk by.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, not to mention though, there is that high cost, and I mean, especially if you're talking about even say like a grocery store. We'll switch the example to Safeway or whatever. To have a beacon sort of in every section, you're talking about hundreds of beacons, and then not only is there a high cost to that, but that can also get confusing as a user. As they're walking by, because these beacons could be in very close proximity to each other. And so it could just become a sort of noise.
Right.
The thing I will add to this, though, is that maybe it could also be, though, that the tech, like I'm thinking specifically of smart glasses. If smart glasses become a mainstream device, sort of like smartphones did, if that's sort of the next phase, maybe some of this might change, because it would mean that the delivery system, instead of using your phone, it would be delivered right to, say, something like a pair of smart glasses, which, again, that would have both AT and mainstream potential, right? Because you could having all that information being fed to you automatically through something like the pair of smart glasses that have speakers built right into the arms of the glasses. I mean, I think that the lesson to be taken from this is that doing things digitally is really the most effective way to do all this, because it gives you the most flexibility for the lowest cost.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I wear a Bose frame, which have the speakers in the arms, and like with this app with Accessibuild, I'm able to, just turn on voice control and walk through the building, and don't have to have the phone in my hand. I can have it in my pocket, and once I reach one of my destinations, like it says, walk 10 feet, then turn right, and then I walk my 10 feet, and I just say out loud, swipe right, and it gives me my next instruction, and et cetera, right through the building, without having to take the phone out of my pocket. And also, like, if we had beacon technologies all in every store in the mall, my Bose would go dead before I get to the next aisle.
Right.
So it's there is I see a place for beacon technology for people to advertise their store and things like that. But I can't see it as being, useful to me as far as navigating that mall.
Right. Let me ask you this then. So are you surprised that, because I haven't heard of anybody else using this particular technology or having this particular idea to solve the problem of indoor navigation. Is there anybody else working on this, or are you guys it?
I've found some. It looks like they're integrating it, but I haven't really had a confirmation whether they're actually using it or not. It seems like they're still using beacons with the technology, and it looks like more or less a full beacon setup. So, I mean, people are using it maybe for verification, but I don't think they're actually implementing it in the way that we are at this time.
And now, how far into the development process are you guys?
Well, we have a fully functional app, and our main building is mapped out. We're actually just taking it to the next level right now. So we're kind of we finished the proof of concept, and we're at the commercialization stage, where the next thing we're looking for is new types of buildings. Because the one thing is, you learn new features from every different type of building. Doing a school to doing a mall to doing a transit station. To doing City Hall is all very different. So we're now approaching new buildings to get this technology set up and to do some additional testing.
So
And I think with Bill C-81 that came out last year, I think that's the first place to really nail down is Government of Canada buildings.
Yep.
We all
very
know
true.
how big, especially in Ottawa. I mean, they're huge, massive. You get lost just going in the front door.
Yep.
So, if our government is actually bound and determined to work out the flaws in Bill C-81, I think this would be a great starting point for them
Yep.
and provincial governments. And then I can see the regular public, like shopping malls, private businesses, jumping into it. But you need to have the basic framework of the government backing it up.
The nice thing about most government buildings is because they've already mandated Braille signs and things like that, we can use their existing infrastructure. So we'll integrate their signs into the system so that we don't have to put up new signage or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that's what's nice about what already exists out there.
So are there costs to the end user? Is there a subscription model? Because there has to be costs for you guys to go in and map these buildings. And
So the cost is really to the building owner. We have a charge for kind of mapping the building and then processing it and putting it into the application. But the app is free to the user, to the end user.
Excellent.
And you can get it on the App Store now.
That's true.
It's called Accessibuild, and if you just search for it, it'll pop up on the App Store. So you can go and have a quick peek at the building that's been done.
You can visit a Y4U Technologies office if you want.
Nice.
But this is exciting because this is actually, it seems to me like a very logical, cost-effective solution to the real problem of accessible spaces. I mean, every time I walk through the mall, I just think,
What am I doing at a mall?
well, yeah, that too. But why am I here? But yeah, I mean, there's no Braille signage. If for somebody who's visually impaired, they're not going to know where the bathrooms are. Like, you're not going to know Old Navy. There's no way to navigate this space, and there doesn't seem to be any movement.
well, even if there was accessible signage, as a blind person, I wouldn't even know it's there anyway.
That's
you
true.
have to go find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to find it. And I mean, with this app, you've got it on your phone.
Yeah.
And how many times have I been to the mall where a new store has opened and I don't even know that it's been open and there until somebody actually says to me, oh, that store opened and it's got some great deals for you. Oh, well, that's good to know. Let's go.
Yeah.
Sorry, we've actually added sign position into the latest app. I don't think Brian has tried it yet, but it'll tell you where the sign is located because there's no real standard within buildings, right? Could be left, could be right, could be on the door. So
just out of curiosity, so what's the process of actually filling in the information? Because you've got you've got basically a 3D model once you've finished mapping it. But in terms of like saying that, okay, well, this space is this and this space is that, and this is the doorway to there. Is that a manual process that you guys go in, or does the building owners do that, or how does that work?
it depends on which information is available, really. A lot of the building owners do have like an index of different tenants or, different areas. So a lot of the information does come from the building owner. Some of it is verification on our part. So it's kind of a collaboration between us and the building owners, because there's also the element of, the building owner potentially controlling the flow of their building. So, for example, we're in a co-working building, so it's a lot of shared spaces in a repurposed school with different offices of all sorts of types. And some want you to go to the main desk, some want you to go wait in. We have a shared cafe or things like that. So they're able to give those directions as well to control the flow. So it is important to work with building owners, I guess. That's what I want to say here.
Right.
Yeah. And when Jeff says us, he means him. He's the one who does all the mapping and all that. All I do is the beta testing.
And send me updates.
And demand more
Yeah,
cowbell
I
from
mean, there's
podcasts.
different things that over the testing of the first building, there was a lot of back and forth between Jeff and I on, well, maybe this should be this way instead of that way, and back and forth. So, and I think the app now is at the point where it's easy to use, and you can set it to whatever you want.
Now, do the building owners have some sort of control over, say, the map markings? Like, do they have a back end or something they can go into to, if they need to alter some of the information, if they have a store that one store moved from here to there? How does that all work? Or do they just basically go to you and just say, hey, we need some information amended?
Currently, yeah, I'm changing the maps, but my intention is actually to develop an administrative interface for building owners if they're interested.
Excellent.
Yeah, the building he's in now, I'm sure there's probably a lot of businesses come in for a month or two and then move on, and another one comes in. So, I mean, if the building owner is able to just change the name, that would be, there's no cost involved.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the wonderful thing about digital. It's really easy to be really flexible in terms of any changes that could come down the line.
Yeah, because I mean that's one of the issues that we encounter that will either make or break a technology like this, and that's to have up-to-date information.
Yep.
Right? If the information's bad, it's worse than not having anything there at all.
Yep, exactly. You don't want to be going into Old Navy and thinking it's the bathroom.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. 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 Sorry, I shop at Old Navy. It's the only store that is
that
top of mind.
Chef Boyardee.
Yes. Which I need to stock up on with this whole coronavirus thing. But
That's right.
There's a shortage in Canada of it because of the rail strikes.
Oh, damn.
That's right.
I hope not.
You'll have to go to KD.
Well, that's not a bad thing either. A little bit more complicated. Anyways, Steve's rolling his eyes. He's shocked.
So, Jeff, how big is your team?
Currently, it's myself, a project manager, and we have 2 part-time employees.
Okay, so what is your next step? You've got your building done. You're hoping for this whole C81 federal buildings who have the right to exempt themselves from everything. Right. What's kind of your next plan, your next process?
I mean, the way I see this going, I think the place it'd be most beneficial is employment and education. I think it's common knowledge that, it's high unemployment rates versus for visually impaired people, which, is really a waste of a big talent pool.
Yep. And
I think being able to get them into buildings with, a minimal cost and, low maintenance for the building owners would be a big benefit. And then on the educational side, same idea, right? Making universities and colleges accessible. So
right.
Later on, they can be integrated into the workforce the same way. Because I think we really need to tap into that talent pool. There's all this information about a lack of skilled workers, and here we have a bunch, that are available, but we just need to add a few, technological solutions to make it easier to integrate. So right now, I'm approaching, cities, educational institutions, transits, things like that to try and incorporate this and to build better models so that we can, enhance our mapping technology. So that's kind of my focus right now. It's really on improving the product and expanding to, other building types.
Yeah, even the call, like at the launch, the college/university here in North Bay were there, and I was talking with the people from them, and they said, this is great. If we had that in our building, and even if it attracted only 5 or 6 students to our location, it would pay for itself.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's the point. There's a good business case for it. We know that, we have a lot of great solutions for feel-good stories, but they're really expensive to implement, and so it just won't be done at a scale that matters, right?
Right.
If this is the only building that's Accessibuild enabled, then it's a nice story, but it's not particularly useful to people. I think when you start having 10 buildings in North Bay or, buildings in 10 buildings in other areas, and you start actually opening up the world to a certain extent, that's when you're going to actually start having an impact.
Yeah, and I mean, there's many companies that I know of in Canada that have been looking for indoor navigation, and I mean, as long as they get the word now about this, and if they're interested, well, they know who to contact.
And so I think what we need to do is tell everybody in our audience to go out and buy a LiDAR camera and start mapping buildings.
There you go.
And send you all the information.
Why not crowdsource?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. I mean, that actually is actually a good point. And is that something that you could see being able to implement into the system, is some sort of crowdsourcing information, or does that just make it too messy?
Well, I mean, we do intend to open it up to other data collectors in different areas. So it's just that there has to be a standard so that we have accuracy, things like that. But no, I think that opening it up would be a good thing to do.
Oh yeah, because
you can't be everywhere yourself.
Yeah, I don't want to be. Yeah, I don't want to be using Accessibuild in North Bay, and then all of a sudden I go to Toronto and it's Toronto build and Ottawa is Ottawa build. I want it all in one app, sort of like what we have for transit. Move it. It doesn't matter where you are.
Right.
It knows you're in Ottawa. It gives you Ottawa transit.
All right. Well, why don't you tell us where can people find the app? Where can people go to learn more information?
Sure.
Anything like that?
So the app is available on the App Store. Currently, it's only for iOS. I'm just working on bringing the Android version around now. So that should be available within the next month or so. And our website is accessibuild.ca. So access iBuild, essentially.
Excellent. All right. Well, guys, listen, thanks for coming out and hanging out for a little bit and telling us all about it.
And
look at that. I can make my next Zoom meeting.
Thanks very much for having me.
That's worth a cowbell right there.
Thanks so much, Jeff, for your time, and Brian, you as well.
No problem.
All right, guys. Have a good rest of your day.
All right. You too.
Thanks.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, as Rick would say, that's slicker than goose poop on a door handle.
Yeah, that makes me really wonder why somebody wasn't thinking of that a long time ago.
we get that a lot.
I mean, I had no idea that you could map a building like that. Obviously that technology has been around for a while, but that just seems like the logical thing to do. Build a 3D model of a space, and then you can fill out the map any way you want.
Yeah.
Well, like he was saying, a lot of these buildings already have the architectural drawings, right? So you already know the layouts of where the washrooms are and everything else.
But even if you don't, you go in, it takes 45 minutes. You go in with your scanner and kaboom.
Yeah. Think of the art galleries, museums, the potential is limitless. We just need the people. We need the people and the data to do it.
And indoor navigation is being such a tough nut to crack. And I don't know, beacons just hasn't seemed to be the right solution for it, it seems. I think the cost is just too much for a lot of spaces. They don't...
Cost and maintenance, I think, are the big issues with beacons, for sure. Yeah. There are some very cool beacon technologies that are out there that could potentially be used, but somebody's got to pony up the money for them.
Right.
Well, and somebody's got to be maintaining them, updating them. If anything changes, that all has to be serviced, right?
Yeah.
Something like this, you're drawing, chances are bathrooms aren't going to change in a building layout. The staircase isn't going to change locations.
Right.
You've got a lot more static information, which is going to be way more useful. And nobody has to worry about maintaining it. You don't need the staff.
No, and especially if they end up making some sort of an administrative portal that back end for building owners to just go in and be like, oh, okay, this is changed, that's changed, and away they go. It's a 10-minute thing as opposed to beacon technology where you have to reprogram the beacon or move the beacon or
Like think of the mall, like the food court ain't going to move.
Yeah,
The bathrooms aren't going to move.
Well, actually, in Lougheed Mall it did.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, but they renovated the entire mall. Yeah, it did.
That's true.
All right, never mind.
But no, I mean, and it is frustrating. It's frustrating to go into public spaces and look around. I mean, if any people who are sighted listening to this, just go into your average mall and think about like how you would navigate this if you were blind. I mean, you just generally there's no good solution. Indoor navigation is something that we have the technology for. It needs to happen.
Even with beacon technology, though, like, let's say GPS gets me to the door, and then the beacons are guiding me to a certain location. The beacon isn't going to tell me that there's a great big flower planter in the center of where I'm walking. In 30 feet, boom, I kick the planter, or I kick a bench, or I kick a table. The beacon's not going to tell me that stuff's there. It's not going to tell me about obstacles along the route.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true too.
Right.
On the bright side, it's not going to giggle at you.
That's true.
Well, this is interesting. I really hope that this takes off.
It sounds promising.
It certainly does.
Sounds
Sounds a lot more promising than, and Navilens too. I mean, Navilens is a great product. It's a great idea, but I feel like Navilens lends itself a little bit more to like larger spaces, like a transit system, maybe an airport. I like the idea of the marriage of the two. Because with the mapping technology, it gets you the building layout, and then all you really need are some key points around that building as reference points. Yeah, which could minimize the use of the Navilens codes, and maximize the use of the spatial information. Yeah, I mean, just think of how seamless of an experience it could be if you had, say, something like a wearable, like a smart glasses, let's say, and you get to the door, and then you have the building layout through this system, and then you've also got Navilens built in there to directing you like to certain shelves or a certain or
to tell you that the door is 2 feet to the right.
Well, and it could even be, kind of like Microsoft Soundscape. It could be, sound located or whatever the terminology is. You turn your head to the left, you're hearing the points of interest on your left. If you're walking down the street, you actually hear Old Navy on your right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it can give you point of reference information as you're walking your route.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I really think the best solution is just going to be marrying a bunch of different ideas together into one app.
Yeah. But somehow all this has to coalesce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the real tricky part. But yeah, I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, we'll have to check back with him and kind of see where things are at.
Should get T-shirts made up. That's our catchphrase on the back. It just says, "Well, we'll see what happens." Seem to say that a lot.
Speaking of T-shirts, or in this case, hockey jerseys, we've got 4 extra hockey jerseys
up there or down there somewhere.
Oh yeah, right.
And we talked a little bit about doing a giveaway.
Yeah.
Do we want to give one of them away this episode?
How would we do that? There's only the 3 of us here. How do we do it, Steve?
Well, I think we just randomly pick one of those 4 jerseys, and we say who wants it, and people can say I want it. And if we get more than one person who says I want it, then we'll
randomly draw a name from a hat.
Okay, there you go, people.
Does that work?
That works.
Okay, so
look at that. What a contest. We just came up with it on the fly too.
All right. So we're going to give away, let's do it in reverse order here. We're going to give away our number 4 hockey jersey.
Okay.
This is a custom AT Banter hockey jersey. Number 4, Rick Chant's jersey. Says on the back Chant, big number 4, on the front AT Banter. Who would like that hockey jersey? If you're interested, email us at cowbell@atbanter.com.
And if you want to improve your chances, send $20 to Rob. All right. Well, there you go. Look at that, our first contest.
Woohoo.
So those people who hung in for the end of the show are in for a treat. Your chances just dramatically increased because everybody else probably bailed.
Dropped off. It's like, well, that's over.
Yeah.
You don't need to listen to their damn summary.
That's right. All right, everything that we want to say about that?
I think that's that.
All right. Well, then, hey, Ryan.
Rob.
Where can people find us?
atbanter.com.
They can also drop us an email, as we just mentioned, cowbell@atbanter.com.
And we're all over that social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. That's about it.
That's right.
I guess that's going to about do it.
For us this week, I guess that will. I guess we'll see what happens next week.
Stay tuned.
Thanks, everybody, for listening in. Big thanks to Brian and Jeff. And we'll see everybody next week.
This podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology, providing low vision and blindness solutions across Canada. Find us online at www.canasstech.com. That's CANASSTECH.com, or call us toll free at 1-844-795-8324. For all your assistive technology servicing needs, call Chaos Technical Services at 778-847-6840, or find them online at chaostechnicalservices.com.
Whoa, look at that. Master of the one take.